Hello everybody, and welcome to Studios RPG Horror Stories, the only show on YouTube scientifically proven to give you plus 3 inches to your cock size. Now let's get on with the story. DM forces my fetish on my group. Firstly, I would like to say that I am using a throwaway for a reason. Specifically, my abhorrent sexual fetishes, which I admit to in this thread. I should start by confessing something. I have an incest fetish. I cannot explain why, but I find incest really hot. And that, unfortunately, is the crux of this story. I admit it's mostly my fault, but it was still uncomfortable for me as well as for my other players. Bro, dude, don't be ashamed of having an incest fetish. If anything, the porn industry is kind of trying to tell you to go fuck your sister. I mean, like for real. Literally, like 90% of porn is sister and stepsister, stepmother, stepfather, step-uncle, my twin stepsister. It's all just, dude, go fuck your sister. So don't worry about it. It's literally the entire porn industry. You shouldn't be ashamed. If anything, they should be. The characters in this story are me, playing a human bard, the Dungeon Master, our group's DM. She's actually a really good DM, in despite of what you may think of her based on this story. But she is the antagonist, unfortunately. Fighter, a very good friend of mine, playing a half-elf fighter. Rogue, a former friend who played a human, rogue. And the Wizard, another former friend who played a halfling wizard. Seems to me like you are after this story, have just sort of cut off several of your friends, so this already looks like it's gone nuclear. Now, with the introductions out of the way, our story begins with a group of friends who started our group in college for 3 years. We had an amazing game, which I could tell much more positive stories about. And still, I have very many good memories of. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to last. One night after a game, a few of us went to the bar and I had a bit too much to drink. Dungeon Master ended up driving me home, and during the car ride, my autistic ass confessed my incest fetish to her. This was something I'd never have done while sober, and was a massive mistake on my part. But at the time, I thought she reacted relatively positively. If only I knew how wrong I was. The next 2 sessions passed without issue, but I learned that there were issues back in my character's home village, and our party decided to investigate. By the time that we had arrived back at my character's hometown, I had honestly forgotten about my drunken confession to DM. Unfortunately, she hadn't. When we arrived at my character's hometown, we learned that a large portion of the village, including my character's father, had been kidnapped by a roving band of orcs. We, being a mostly good party, including my bard, who was very lawful good, immediately decided that we would rescue the hostages. At this point, we were treated to our first mildly weird moment. Namely, my bard's mother being given a special scene where she holds him really close and talks about how much of a man her brave little boy is grown into. At the time, it was pretty innocuous, but in hindsight, the Dungeon Master put a disturbing amount of Dungeon Master level detail into it. Especially how large her bosom was and how tightly she pressed against my character while hugging him. Oh my god, that's some fucking Kevin level shit. After this moment, we went to fight the orcs. It was a very difficult combat. We enjoyed it a lot, and the boss fight with the orc chieftain was honestly incredible. Sadly, it was overshadowed by what came afterwards. When we went to rescue the prisoners, we discovered that all of the men among the prisoners had been surgically castrated by the orcs. This already made all of us except DM uncomfortable, but only Rogue really spoke up about it at that time. In addition, when I asked about my character's father, we learned that he had been sacrificed to the orcs' dark gods. DM explicitly stated that this was after he had been castrated with the rest of the men. My character actually had a nice RP moment when he found his father's corpse. He was utterly devastated. This had been the man who taught him to approach the world, with a smile on his face and a song on his lips. He was gone. Nothing but an empty case. Not only was he gone, but he had been utterly humiliated, spit on and stripped of dignity before his death. My character insisted on taking his corpse to town where he could be given a proper burial, and for some weird reason the Dungeon Master seemed almost annoyed by this. After we got to town, DM described to us how distraught the women were to hear their husbands, sons, and brothers' conditions. This was to be expected, but when she got to my character's mother's reaction seeing her son exhaustively carrying her husband's corpse into town, something changed, and it was very noticeable to everyone at the table. She seemed to put more detail into her appearance than her emotions. I feel like it would be in very, very bad taste to mention the specifics, but the phrase heaving bosom was uttered several times as the DM described my mother's character in her state of mourning over the man she married. It was honestly kind of disgusting, and I could tell the other players noticed as well, though none of us said anything. The townsfolk held a celebration for us after our defeat of the orcs, but I made it very clear that my character was not in a celebratory mood. He was drunk, but more to forget rather than to celebrate. Then, the DM made her move. She described my bard's mother walking in on my character half drunk and sullen in the tavern while everyone else was outside enjoying the festivities. DM made it very clear she meant everyone, including the tavern keep. We were alone together. Then she told me how, while my character's mother was devastated by the loss of my character's father, she had been missing a man in her life, even before the orcs had kidnapped him. I probably should have objected by this point, but I honestly didn't know what to do. Then the DM described my mother offering to soothe the pain for both of us and taking off her clothes. While we'd already established that all of us were okay with not safe for work themes in the campaign, this was a bit much, and the fighter explicitly said he was not okay with what was going on. Wizard and Rogue admittedly said so as well, and I finally got up the guts to speak for myself. At this point, DM kind of freaked out a bit, not by a lot. She didn't start screaming or burst into tears, but he got noticeably upset. She told us that the entire village subplot had been enraged because of me, and the incest thing had happened because I told her I had an incest fetish on the way home from the bar several weeks ago. I honestly don't remember much of what happened next. It was a screaming match, and being from a naturally timid person, I hate screaming matches. What's worse, a large portion of the screaming from everyone else, and I do mean everyone, was directed at me. I can't say it was not deserved, because this was all my fault, but I was really upset about it. In the aftermath, our group disbanded. Wizard will no longer talk to me at all, and Rogue says our friendship is over. Thankfully, the fighter is still friends with me. It's been 5 days and I still haven't talked to DM. Fighter claims she had a crush on me, which I'm not sure if I believe, but it would explain a lot of her actions. I'm not really sure what to do. Honestly, I mean, I know all of this is my fault, but I'm not sure how to make amends. This has caused a massive fracture in the table, and even if we do somehow end up mending it back together, I don't think things will ever be the same. I would honestly really appreciate some advice, though I know that this isn't the purpose of the sub. Okay, OP, so I'm gonna be straight with you. This sounds to me like your Dungeon Master themselves actually have a incest fetish, possibly castration fetish, maybe even like genital mutilation or gudo. I mean, like considering the sacrifice, it could be gudo. But 100%, this is an S&M incest genital mutilation control fetish that the DM themselves have. There would be no, like, even like the most Kevinly of that guys that I've ever fucking met or heard of that were in the Dungeon Master seat have not put this sort of like incest detail into a not safe for work, safe campaign. They generally don't go for incest. They go for, you know, gore. This was incest and gore. So the DM probably does have that fetish themselves. I'm gonna be honest, there's not really any way that I can think of to recover from this. If those two people left the table because you drunkenly said that you had an incest fetish, like, fucking a month and a half ago, and the Dungeon Master 6, 7, 8 weeks later is like, okay, yeah, you know what? We're gonna fucking just put this in here. Let's fucking do this, baby. That's on the DM. And, if they're really blaming you for having an incest fetish, or for saying that you had one while you were fucking drunk weeks ago, they were never your friends to begin with. They were probably only there for the campaign. I don't know what to say. I will say that Fighter, having stayed with you even through this, has shown their true colors. They really very much support you. They're a keeper. Even if you don't fancy them romantically, as a friend, she's a keeper. And I would recommend that you hold on tight to that. Now, much love and stay sexy, everyone. I'll see you guys later. Be streaming on Twitch. And enjoy. Bye-bye!